evening, everyone. Welcome to a pro and con forum on propositions 26, 27, 26, 27, and 30, appearing on your November ballot. This forum tonight is sponsored by the Sacramento Women Dems and the League of Women Voters of Sacramento. I'm Paula Lee, a member of the League of Women Voters and the moderator for tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of women and men. We work at all levels of government, national, state, and local, to encourage the informed and active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose political candidates or parties. Although we do not endorse or oppose candidates, we are a political organization. And we do, after careful study, take positions on ballot measures and legislation with our advocacy arm. You can find our positions on our website. And if you're interested in public policy or want to support our volunteer work, we invite you to join us. We do not have a position on 26, 27, or 30. The format for this forum will be as follows. Each side will have 3 minutes for an opening statement to make their case, and then each side will answer questions that have been solicited in advance with a minute to answer. This is a complicated issue. If you need a little more time, or the speaker on Zoom needs a little more time to answer, let me know, but try to be as concise as possible because our time is short and we want to get in as many questions as possible. Tonight our timer is Claudia Bonsignor, and she is in the front row, and she will tell you when you have 30 seconds left, and when your time is up, you're going to see a stop sign. I'm going to be rotating who answers first. So now, Prop 26. The question for voters is, should California increase the allowable gambling activities at American-owned casinos and allow betting on sports events at casinos and horse racing tracks? We're going to begin with an opening statement from Kyle Griffith, who is in support of Prop 26. Kyle?
Still getting nothing.
Turn it off and on.
Still nothing. Still nothing.
Well, they can hear you.
Okay,
The mics are just to help everybody here. So
no
you
problem.
can just project and
Absolutely.
I'll hand it back to you.
They've got it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Griffith. I'm the Senior Coalitions Coordinator for the Coalition for Safe, Responsible Gaming. We were formed to support Proposition 26 and oppose Proposition 27. If you guys have turned on your televisions recently, I'm sure you've seen plenty of ads about both 26 and 27. And I hope by the end of today we can clear up both issues and gain your support for Proposition 26. I know you're probably asking yourself, why now? Why are Californians faced with 2 ballot measures that have to do with the legalization of sports betting? And that is because in 2018, the Supreme Court issued a ruling that essentially left it up to each state to determine how they legalize sports betting, whether it's in person, online, or some combination of the two. For more than 20 years, California's Indian tribes have served as responsible stewards of gaming, and California voters have reiterated their support for tribes to offer highly regulated betting on tribal lands. And tribes have been responsible stewards of gaming, and it's with that spirit in mind that Proposition 26 was placed on the ballot. Quite simply, Prop 26 would authorize sports betting in person at tribal casinos and select racetracks. It would also authorize new games, including craps and roulette, while establishing additional funding to treat and prevent problem gambling behaviors as well as provide additional resources to the Department of Justice for enforcement of and regulation of this new form of gambling. Proposition 26, by requiring folks to place bets in person, is the safest and most responsible option for California. It virtually eliminates the risks of underage gambling or people placing bets that should not do so. Proposition 26 is the only measure on this ballot that was written by tribes and supported by dozens of tribes. It will also help non-gaming and limited gaming tribes by increasing payments through the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund established by tribal state compacts. Currently, non-gaming tribes receive approximately $900,000 per year, $1.1 million per year through the RSTF, and it's expected that Prop 26 would nearly double those payments to $2 million per year. And these funds will help non-gaming tribes develop critical infrastructure on tribal lands, as well as provide services like education and housing to their tribal members. Tribal gaming as an industry is powerful in California. It supports over 150,000 jobs statewide and $27 billion in economic opportunity. Proposition 26 is a responsible way to authorize sports betting in California. It's supported by dozens of organizations, including the NAACP, La Raza Roundtable of California, the Dolores Huerta Community Foundation, and the California Young Democrats. We urge you to vote yes on Prop 26 this November, and you can visit yeson26.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Our next speaker is Marcus Wolf, who's opposed to Prop 26, and he's on Zoom. Marcus, your opening statement.
Correct. Hi, everybody. Marcus Wolf. I'm one of the CDP outreach delegates for the No on 26 Coalition. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your local advocacy and all of the important work you do getting great candidates elected here in Sacramento. I'm just calling to make sure that all of you saw that AFSCME of California is also calling on the Democratic Party to oppose the Tribal Sports Wagering Act. This is primarily due to the danger it poses to their union members who work for the cities that could lose up to $500 million in local tax revenue. Cities, by the way, that primarily represent communities of color. As you may have heard, there's two initiatives on the ballot. There's also another initiative collecting signatures for 2024. And that's supported by a whole different coalition of Native American tribes. The Tribal Sports Wagering Act currently only has a roughly 25% of California's tribes supporting it. And we're just trying to make sure that everyone knows everything they need to know about it. It has a provision in it that basically allows private citizens or competing entities to sue California's community card rooms who make up the broad base of coalition that are against this, on top of AFSCME and many other community organizations. So I think the biggest thing that we need to let you guys know about is that there's up to 32,000 jobs and $500 million in local tax revenue that could be impacted if Prop 26 passes, not because of anything to do with sports wagering, but because a provision was included in it, the Private Attorney General's Act, which would allow tribal nations or individual citizens to sue their competitor to local card rooms that the State Gambling Commission has ruled multiple times have the right to exist. I'm happy to take any questions after this or just go over more of the details if necessary.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to the questions indeed. Both of speakers will answer the questions. So we'll start with Kyle. Kyle, is it true that Prop 26 would increase gambling? Would it not merely legalize and tax gambling that is already happening illegally or in other states?
Sure. Proposition 26 is authorizing new forms of games. So yes, I would say that it would increase gambling in the state. However, I would also say that for more than 20 years, tribes have been responsible stewards. And, in-person gaming does carry risks of addiction, but when you contrast that with the other option on the 2022 ballot, Prop 27, it's a lot safer and more responsible option because online gambling is far, far more addictive. To answer the second question about, capturing a market that is already happening, yes, it is important that Prop 26, if passed, would generate tens of millions of dollars for the state, which would be dedicated to the general fund, because people would have a legal option. Illegal gambling does happen, but it is far more difficult than most people are able to do accessing online or websites from offshore. So 26 is the safest and most responsible way to authorize sports betting in California.
And Marcus?
Am I answering the same question he was just asked?
Yes, you'll both answer the same question.
Yeah, I mean, 26 would definitely expand gambling. Their version of the bill drives people to tribal casinos. And just for the record, you know, the tribal nations have been great stewards and party supporters for the Democratic Party for the last couple decades. So we're not here opposing sports gambling because the tribes are going to get it. If we were just leaving the status quo of gambling in place and simply just giving online sports wagering to the tribes, we would be fine with that. The problem that we have is the Coalition of Community Card Rooms is simply just that they've included this one provision in it that will allow individuals or the tribes themselves to sue their competitor card rooms and potentially put them out of business and impact massively, you know, local revenue, thousands of governmental jobs all throughout California. The city of Bell Gardens, roughly 40% of their rough revenue is from one card room in their community down there in Southern California. So there's gonna be massive impacts to them. And it's been so controversial that AFSCME statewide, who represents thousands of governmental employees on the local level, is officially opposed to this. So yeah, we just simply want to join in too.
Marcus, one of the problems with you being on Zoom is that you can't see our timer. I'm sorry. So I'm going to have to cut you off because it's a 1 minute answer. If you need more time, you just have to let me know. Next question, we're going to start with you, Marcus. Are there enough safeguards to prevent underage gambling? And what are the mechanisms that tribal casinos and racetracks will be required to implement to ensure that minors are not able to gamble?
I do think there's enough safeguards in place as long as I know everyone's ID'd when they enter a tribal casino. I mean, I think Kyle's more qualified to answer that question given he's representing them.
Sure, and yes, I think that there are enough safeguards. I mean, if folks have been to a casino in person, they're highly sophisticated and are able to spot, kids accessing the casino floor and intervene far in advance of someone placing a bet illegally. I mean, if you would like to test that theory, I'm sure that there are a couple of casinos that are available. But, and that is the point of Prop 26 compared to Prop 27, is because of that extra additional level of security. Furthermore, gambling is inherently social, and one of the dangers of online gambling is that you're isolated and have access to that gambling addiction wherever and whenever you want. By requiring people to be physically present at one of these locations, and with the ID and security checks in place, it is very, very safe and effectively, eliminates that risk of underage gaming happening at the tribal casinos.
All right, Kyle, does this expansion address labor protections of increased gambling industry workforce?
So that is one of the aspects of that might require a little bit of extra time to explain. So if I go over a little bit, I'll try and keep it quick. But as part of the tribal state compacts and with Proposition 26, because it authorizes new games, it would require the tribes to renegotiate the tribal state compacts that they hold with the state and the federal governments. And that would include the insertion of what's known as the Tribal Labor Relations Ordinance, LRO. Man, I'm good at letters. That requires, with the ratification of new compacts, that labor, in this case Unite Here, is given a seat at the table, and tribes are not allowed to intervene and prevent them from organizing casino staff members. While it's unclear how many of the tribes are going to renegotiate the compacts in order to get sports betting and the new games authorized, the ones that do, that are currently not organized, would have to open those dialogues and open up the opportunity for additional casinos to be organized.
Marcus?
I think Kyle covered it pretty well. Yeah, like I said, we're just here because of the one provision in the act. In terms of sports betting going to tribes, we think there's a better version of a bill coming from the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. and only 25% of tribes currently are supporting Prop 26. So that's basically where we stand on it.
Can I provide a quick point of clarification?
Yes.
The San Manuel measure recently failed their random sample count for signature verification with the state or the Secretary of State. So now they're going to a full count of their signature verification, and it's pretty unlikely that it's going to qualify. So, I would appreciate it if we focus on Prop 26 instead of talking about a measure that is unlikely to appear on the 2024 ballot.
Okay, Marcus, how much control over gambling should California tribal casinos have? Is the revenue fairly shared with smaller tribes?
I'd say no, it doesn't seem like it is. There's definitely a lot of smaller tribes that currently do not have casinos, and many of them are still living in, less than desirable conditions. I think that's part of what's given so much, kind of energy to Prop 27 is that they are incorporating some of those smaller tribes into their initiative. Whether that version of sports gambling is the right choice as well, I don't know. I think that really needs to come down to informed voters really looking through all of it. I am only with the No on 26 coalition. I don't have any connection to Prop 27. But yeah, I do worry that it's not good enough currently for some of the smaller tribes that have been left out of having their own tribal casinos the last 20 to 30 years.
Kyle?
Can you repeat the question, please, just to make sure I answer all of it?
Yeah, how much control over gambling should California tribal casinos have? And is the revenue fairly shared with smaller tribes?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, Prop 26, if passed, would nearly double the amount that's paid to the small and limited gaming tribes through the Revenue Sharing Trust Fund. However, I do want to answer the first part of that question a little bit differently because there are certain classifications of games in California, and certain entities are authorized to offer certain classifications. The folks that Marcus is representing are the California Card Room Casinos that offer Class 2 games. Those are games of skill, player versus player. The tribal casinos are authorized to offer Class 3 games, which are games of chance where you play against the house. The folks that Marcus works for are offering games, Class 3 games, potentially breaking California law in order to do so. And the enforcement element contained within Proposition 26 simply asks the Department of Justice to investigate to ensure that all of our existing gaming laws are being followed. I think that California's tribes have been great stewards of Class 3 games, and sports betting is considered Class 3 games, and they should be continue being offered the right as responsible stewards of those games.
Okay, last question before your closing statement. Kyle, and by the way, our tech person, I want to ask, are we okay without the mics?
Yeah, as long as you project good, we can hear you fine.
Okay, thank
online.
you. Is allowing sports betting good for California overall? Why or why not?
Sure. I mean, that really comes down to the individual, whether or not you think that gambling is something that people do for entertainment or if gambling is a vice. If you're personally opposed to gambling, I don't think there's anything that I can say up here that'll convince you otherwise. But, for individuals, as one of the other questions alluded to, legalizing a currently illegal mechanism to ensure that California benefits would benefit the state overall. And if Californians, decide this November to authorize sports betting, Proposition 26 is easily the right choice. It is the safest and most responsible. It provides additional resources for problem gaming, treatment and prevention, as well as the Department of Justice for enforcement of these new kinds of games. So yes, I would argue that Proposition 26 is indeed, good for California. That is, assuming you're okay with gambling in general.
Marcus?
Yeah, so I would just argue that Prop 26 is just flawed with the one provision in it that I mentioned earlier. The fact that individual citizens and competing entities, and being the tribal casinos, could then sue their competitors with community card rooms, regardless of the distinctions they have and what kind of games they can play. It just creates a loophole for frivolous lawsuits and a way for the larger tribal casinos to put pressure on their competitor card rooms that often operate within city limits and pay really important tax revenue to those cities. And obviously that revenue is then funded into massive amounts of governmental employees who could potentially be put at risk if this all goes through without some kind of corrections to what is currently written. So yeah, I just urge everyone to really consider the long-term ramifications of this, and not just to push something through because we have the opportunity to do it. I'm happy to follow up anymore if anyone else has a specific question.
Okay, well, it's time for closing statements, and Marcus, we're going to begin with you. You have 1 minute.
So yeah, we're just urging you guys to stand with AFSCME of California and calling on the Democratic Party to oppose the Tribal Sports Wagering Act, just because of the danger it poses to their union members who work for the cities that could lose up to $500 million in local tax revenue. Cities, by the way, that primarily represent communities of color. To be clear, we have no problem with the other initiative, that being the San Manuel one, which he mentioned might not get enough signatures, but none of that's been verified yet. And AFSCME members are just asking that we do this, because only 25% of California's tribes are currently in support of this. I just don't think the measure's right for what we're currently talking about. It's too big of a thing to put on a chance like this. And I think I mentioned it already, but I'll at least leave with what cities are currently opposed, and that's the city of Bell Gardens, Bellflower, Citrus Heights in Sacramento, California. It's Clovis, Commerce, Compton, Cudahy, Hawaiian Gardens, Huntington Park, Linwood, Montebello, and the city of San Jose. And I'll leave our website in the chat so people can check it out if they want to.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. Kyle, your closing statement, 1 minute.
Thank you. Proposition 26 is not going to shut down a single legitimately operating card room casino. The folks that are funding the campaign against Proposition 26 have a long and well-documented history of breaking the law, including facilitating money laundering, loan sharking, and bribing public officials. They're quite simply claiming that this is going to kill jobs because they don't have any policy reasons to oppose us, and they fear the additional oversight that Proposition 26 would bring. Quite simply, Proposition 26 is the safest and most responsible way for California to authorize sports betting this November. We urge you to join with tribes in support of 26 and vote yes. So thank you, and happy to answer any questions afterwards when everything wraps up. But thanks again for the opportunity.
Okay, well now. Okay, our camera is still going, folks, so we're going to move to Prop 27. And the question on Prop 27 is this. Should California allow online and mobile sports betting for people 21 years of age and older? So we have a speaker in support and opposition of Prop 27, and our speaker in support of 27 is Crystal Strait. And you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks, Crystal.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Paula, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Crystal Strait. I'm part of the outreach team for Yes on 27. 27 is actually more straightforward than you probably think. It simply allows California to license, tightly regulate, and tax online sports betting. Right now, sports betting happens in California, but it's done illegally. It's not taxed, it's not regulated. And what we've seen since, as Kyle described, since 2018, over half the country has found a way to safely and legally create online sports betting systems and use that money, tax those services and use those for whatever is important to the state. So our proposal, we worked with a coalition of tribes, homeless and mental health advocates, mayors all up and down the state, and they all agree that, and faith leaders, that it would make sense to allow tightly regulated online sports betting and then tax and use the tax money from the sports betting towards homelessness and mental health solutions. I think we've all kind of agreed that homelessness and mental health is a problem that is top of mind for all Californians. And you've even heard in the previous speeches that we're going to be heading into recessions. We see more and more needs for funding and less opportunities. So our solution is pretty simple. We should bring online sports betting that is currently happening in California out of the shadows and allow tribes to partner with organizations that know how to do safe online sports betting in a responsible way. This measure, as you probably have heard or seen, will create hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Again, revenue that will create a permanent fund that local governments will be able to access for homeless housing and mental health uses. I think there's a lot of concern that people say, oh, is it a permanent solution? We know that this will not be enough money for what we need to tackle all the problems that people have that are facing being unsheltered. But we know that needing a permanent fund is a necessary first step. And I'm sure in the Q&A we'll get into a lot more.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds weathery up there.
Oh my God.
Lightning.
Big lightning, yeah.
Lightning,
And there's a pool right there. I don't know what that means. I've never seen lightning strike a pool.
Okay, and in opposition to Prop 27, we have Kyle Griffiths. Your 3-minute opening remark, please.
Excellent. Proposition 27 is being sponsored by out-of-state corporations for their own benefit. It would take 90% of the revenues out of California without making significant investments in our state. Prop 27 would legalize online and mobile sports betting in California, effectively turning every cell phone, tablet, and laptop into a gambling device. It would expose our kids and other vulnerable populations to increased risk of addiction and problem gaming behaviors. Prop 27 lacks critical safeguards to prevent underage gambling. Quite simply, there's no sure-proof way to ensure that the other person on the side of that screen is who they say that they were. What's worse is these companies have already been fined tens of millions of dollars in other states for violating prohibitions on advertising to minors and have even allowed minors to create and access their platform. The National Council on Problem Gaming has found that online gambling is far, far more addictive than traditional in-person forms of gambling. And quite simply, that comes down to access. If you're able to gamble whenever, wherever you want, it will create and feed addictions. States with legal online sports gambling have reported increases in calls to problem gaming hotlines have doubled, tripled, or in some cases even quintupled after the legalization of online sports betting. The proponents of this measure are cynically marketing this as a solution to homelessness and mental health, but it doesn't take a public policy expert to recognize that attempting to fund homeless services by legalizing gambling is the wrong decision for California. It's only going to create additional addictions and financial disparities. Just like the state lottery, Prop 27 is intended to hide the real intent behind this measure. For the lottery, it was funding education. For California, or for Prop 27, it's funding homeless services. In both cases, the revenues are going to fail to develop. The proponents behind Prop 27 are going to take 90% of the revenues out of state, and they have included a loophole that allows them to deduct the free and promotional bets that they offer when for a new market from the taxable revenue. The loophole exists in other states with legalized online sports betting, and it has created such significant revenue shortfalls that subsequent legislation had to be passed using taxpayer money to make up for those shortfalls. Nearly 300 organizations are opposed to Prop 27, including both the California Republican and Democratic Party, the California Teachers Association, social justice advocates, statewide ethnic chambers, and nearly 60 of California's tribes. Proposition 27 is bad for tribes, it's bad for Californians, and we urge you to vote no. You can see our full list of opponents and get more information at noprop27.com.
Well, from looking at the questions, it looks like you'll both have a chance to.
I was gonna say, I'm sure the question gets some rebuttal there.
Yes, you definitely will, and you'll be able to expound on your points there. So, Crystal,
Yes.
so Is allowing sports betting on phones and mobile devices good for California overall? Why or why not?
Well, again, much like when we talked about 26, if you don't support gaming and gambling, then nothing I say is gonna make you support Prop 27. But again, we've shown that in 25 other states that you can safely create an online sports betting. And can I be really clear? This is sports betting. This is not poker. This is not lots of other gambling or gaming. This is sports betting. This is, for all of you that see football going on right now, we know lots of people are playing fantasy sports and betting on sports games. This is sports betting. And the truth is, it's happening right now. And the truth is, people are addicted to gaming. The reason why I think those stats go up when you see legalized gaming is not that all of a sudden there's so many more people gaming. It's that now they're actually having access to getting support that they need. I think as Democrats, we're for bringing things out of the shadows into a licensed and highly regulated, safe system, which is what this initiative does.
Kyle?
The Washington Legislative Analyst's Office recognized in their fiscal analysis of what this measure would do is that local governments would increase costs up to tens of millions of dollars due to the increase in individuals with gambling addictions. Furthermore, as Chris mentioned, the other states with this legalized online betting sponsored by these platforms, the problem gaming hotline or councils are sounding the alarm because that access is the issue. People are losing their entire savings accounts because they do not realize how much more addictive online gambling can be. And the CEOs of DraftKings and FanDuel are on the record as saying that online sports betting is just the first step. Once it's legalized, they push for the online casinos with online slots and poker that will only further addiction. Prop 27 is the wrong choice for California.
Kyle, after paying state regulatory costs, revenue from tax and licensing fees would go to a new fund with 85% used for homelessness and related mental health programs. And then 15% would go to native tribes not involved in sports betting. What assurances are there that these funds reach targeted populations? And I'm gonna add something else. If these funds are intended to address homelessness, what value is it to people who don't have a place to live? So would the funds support any additional affordable housing units?
So I think the answer is, probably not. There's nothing that I can say that's going to guarantee that these funds are going to go where they're supposed to. The California State Auditor recently audited California's efforts to combat the homelessness issue in California and found that the very same program that the proponents of 27 have modeled their program after lacked clear direction in funding. They are not using the money that we have already dedicated to this issue well enough for us to continue throwing good money after bad, especially if it's going to come at the cost of the increased addiction associated with Prop 27. So there's no guarantees that it's actually going to go there. There's no guarantees that this money actually has to be used for mental health. It only says they modeled their funding distribution program after a housing program. There's no mental health funding included in that program. It simply says that that money could be used for mental health. So, there's no guarantees, and furthermore, Prop 27 would, in terms of benefits to tribal communities, there are only 3 tribes that have endorsed Proposition 27. The fund that their measure would create would have to be distributed to all tribes in California, not just the non-unlimited gaming tribes. So those small tribes would be competing with Pechanga, Sycuan, etc. for the same amount. Pardon me, sorry, that's a big
Long
one.
sentence.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you finish your sentences though, but
No worries.
Crystal.
Well, first of all, there are plenty of guarantees in the proposition. The proposition was clearly written so that the money that the revenue, the hundreds of millions of revenues that will go into, specifically into a fund for homeless and mental health programs. Now, it was modeled after the state program so that we can continue to build. That state program was modeled in a system that allows local governments who know best in terms of what their population needs and what their population would like to see in terms of housing, et cetera. I think it does not say mental health, but we all know when we build housing right now, we are really looking at supportive housing. The programs that would be funded by this are supportive housing models. The last part, I'm gonna run out of time to talk about the tribes, but I think it's very important, and we did start alluding to this in the Prop 26 conversation, that there are many tribes that do not benefit from the gaming system that currently exists. And yes, the tribes that are very public about supporting this initiative are tribes that are in spaces where their brick and mortar casinos, if they have one, are not going to be as prosperous as the big tribes. And so this is a way for them to actually build revenue and build a future for their tribes, and that's why they're supportive of it. I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, this question here may give you a little more time on that. Many tribes have come out in opposition to Prop 27, but licensed gambling tribes would be permitted to offer online sports betting, increasing their own revenue. Why are so many tribes opposed to Prop 27?
Why are so many tribes? Well, I think since Kyle represents those other tribes, he probably will answer that. I think that I think it's quite obvious what we've seen in terms of why the bigger tribes are not supportive of smaller tribes basically breaking into the market and getting to take the lion's share of this market. I want to be really clear, in order for these quote big out-of-state companies that are coming in, if a company is going to create an online gaming portal or online sports betting system in California, they must do it in partnership with the tribe. If a tribe will not partner with them, they will not be able to create a system. So everyone wants to talk about DraftKings, FanDuel, all these names of companies, unless there is a tribe partnering, a California tribe partnering with them in partnership to actually build the gaming system, it won't be allowed. So you can ask yourselves, why do the big tribes not want to stick with forward?
Kyle?
Sure. So number one, the reason why there are a handful of tribes that are in support of Prop 27 is because, the requirement that they partner with one of these platforms. However, those are only 5-year deals, and what's going to happen after those 5 years are up, they're not going to get the same percentage from these companies. They're just going to go shopping for the next tribe for them to partner with in order to continue operating in California. They're essentially hiding behind these tribes in order to claim that they're working within the tribal community to open in California. The overwhelming majority of the tribal community is opposed to Prop 27 because they have to sacrifice their sovereignty in order to comply with the measures or the requirements of Prop 27. And to the question asker's point, why are the tribes afraid of starting their own? It's because if you were thinking about DraftKings and FanDuel that advertise incessantly, time and time again, and the tribes are going to have to create a new app, staff it, and then advertise for it to compete with these guys. It's not a competition at all. It's written to benefit them in particular.
Okay. Kyle, the Supreme Court has allowed states to decide on sports betting nationwide. If California continues to disallow online sports betting and another state, such as Nevada, permits it, sports betting will continue and California will continue to not receive fees. Shouldn't California attempt to at least receive some benefit?
Look, my mom told me to never give in to peer pressure, so I'm going to go ahead and say no. Because Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona all have legalized sports betting. I believe all of them have online sports betting in some form or fashion. And I don't think that we should pass Proposition 27 because all of our friends and neighbors are doing it. Prop 27 is dangerous. It includes measures or loopholes that allow people or the online corporations to reduce the amount of money that is taxed. In Arizona, in addition to the increases in gambling addiction and calls to the hotlines, they also lost out on 50% of the taxable revenue because of these loopholes for free and promotional bets. California is the biggest market in the country that has not authorized sports betting, and they see us as a way to cash out, and they're interested in extracting as much wealth out of California as they can without making significant investments.
Again, I think the significant, in order for a license, for a company to get a license, the fee is $100 million. I don't know how you can say that that is not a significant investment. I think that, one of the things that's interesting hearing all of this is that you've probably heard most of the arguments made tonight, and much of that is because there's been $100 million spent against Prop 27. And that money is coming all from a handful of very large tribes. And so again, I would ask us, why is that? Why, what is the issue? What is the problem with letting smaller tribes or democratizing the process to allow other tribes to work with companies and create a safe space for online sports betting?
Okay, time for closing statements, and you're first, Crystal.
The guest side is first?
Oh no, it's usually,
The no side's first.
yeah, I think it should be me first, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, is it the no side?
Yeah, sure. So before I launch into the rest of my statement, that $100 million can be deducted 20% over the first 5 years. So they get all that money back, and they also require that online operators are up in 10 states in order to do so. It's anti-competitive because only the biggest of these platforms can do it. Proposition 27 was written by these companies for these companies. The measure is going to, increase addiction as well as expose kids, seniors, and veterans to risk of gambling addiction.
Okay, that's good.
No, I thought I was including that in my 1 minute. So
Oh, you're on your.
Yeah, I thought-
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
I thought I was gonna use like 15 seconds to
No,
answer
you're
and then
right,
finish.
you're right, you got it.
So my bad. Proposition 27 is opposed by more than 300 organizations. We hope you vote no on 27. I was trying to squeeze all that in. So my bad. I should probably.
That's okay, that's
Yeah.
okay. I thought you were doing.
No, I think at this point I've hit my minute, so I'm gonna go ahead and defer to Crystal for the rest. So, yeah,
Thank you.
play by the rules. So.
I mean, look, I think sports betting and on this ballot initiative seems very complicated, but it really isn't. This is simply a way to license, to tightly regulate and tax online sports betting. It's happening right now. It's not being taxed. This is a way that would still keep the sovereignty that tribes currently have, the same system that they currently have to use to do in-person gaming. This is simply an online form, but yet it does let some smaller tribes, it lets some landlocked tribes, groups that have not often had the opportunity that some of the bigger tribes have had. This gives them that opportunity. And then on top of this, there is money, and I just want to end with, you've heard a lot of facts and figures thrown at you. Everything I've talked about comes from the legislative analyst report, which Kyle quoted as well. And the LAO looked at everything that's happened around the country. The LAO looked at all these other states and yet still said that Prop 27 will create hundreds of millions of dollars. So please remember that when you're voting. Let us know if you have any other questions.
Well, we'd really like to thank you for helping to educate the voters.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Yes.
tired of our commercials.
This was definitely better than, yeah, thank you both. We also want to thank Lynn Debs for hosting and the lead volunteers for timing, and thank you all for your good questions that came in. And we want to remind you that the ballots are going to be going out October 8th, right around the corner. So if you need to re-register or register, maybe you've moved, maybe your signature has changed a little bit, be sure and re-register soon. And you can return your ballot by mail when you get it, or you can put it in a secure drop box anywhere in the county, including all the county libraries, Rayleighs, Bel Airs. It's very convenient. Or you can vote in person. anywhere in the county, and those locations for drop boxes and in-person voting centers will be in your ballot information that comes in the mail. Don't forget to go to the league website for nonpartisan voter information. It's votersedge.org. VOTERS edge, EDGE.org. So you're a more informed voter tonight. Please pass it on, and good night.